So a very good mate of mine said to me, you know, the significance of New Year's Eve in 2020, and you know, we're clocking over from 2019 to 2020, and I said to him, I saw your picture on Facebook of a unit in 2020. He said, yeah, I thought that was really abstract, you know, with us coming up to 2020. And he said they were sort of a unit that was way before their time, obviously. And I said, well, in many ways in one. But he prompted me to pull out the unit in 2020 bits and pieces we've got. And we don't have a lot, to be honest. People overestimate sometimes what's sitting here. And I thought I'd give you a bit of a look at how the unit in 2020 was as we approach, you got it, 2020. Anyway, enough of the pun. Just to give you an idea what we'll be looking at today, there's one here that I've just popped a speaker on for the moment. There's Miles' old unit, which I reckon, don't know, either that one or that one, not sure. We'll get to that. I'll be able to tell which ones is Miles. It'll transmit on 27 megs. Got a really nice looking VFO, got to clean the dust off it. Another VFO, missing a top cover though, which is a bit of a bother. Anyway, but it does have the word executive there, you know, where that one doesn't. Somehow I don't think we'll take that as being factory. Alright, so the unit in 2020, a radio that you either loved or hated. I loved it, I got to say. I had one back in the, probably the 90s, I'd say. They'd been out for a while by then. Now, please, the dust on these, I've got to give these all a good clean up. I'm just kind of checking if they work in this video, more than anything. Anyway, let's have a look at it. So, we've obviously got a receive signal coming in at 28.355, which is kind of weird because, of course, I was testing the receive-only version of that on 27.355, and it was coming up well there, but because we wanted to do a transmit test, I popped our little fella over here up to 28.355. Anyway, so the one thing the unit in 2020 did that was something you either loved or hated was that they allowed you to jump around the band 100 kcs at a time. But of course, you know, that could mean if you were in the CW section and you suddenly wanted to jump yourself up to, you know, 28.490, you didn't have to do a lot of VFO scrolling to do it. And, you know, then you could be back down in the lower section, etc. So, you know, as you'll see, as I'm moving these buttons, 100 kcs. As I said, not everyone loved it. Look, I do love a free-running VFO like everybody else, but, you know, in the year 2020, which is coming up, as my friend keeps pointing out to me, you know, we're always after something that's a little bit different and something that's just a bit of fun. So let's have a look. 27... I keep saying 27 on the brain because I was just testing down there on this thing. Doesn't transmit on 27 at the moment, so let me make that very clear. That will not be true of all of them, Miles. VK28SS. Anyway, I'm just being silly. Alright, so we're putting in about 5 microvolts, so, you know, look, what it's reading is about right for that. These were never known for being, you know, superb receivers, but they're not bad. Hang on, let's take it right down, bring that volume up a bit. And 0.5 a microvolt. Let's play with that pre-selector just a little bit. And we're just picking that up a bit. Not bad. Look, 0.5 is about what you're going to get out of one of these. I don't want to... How much shows it? It's all right. Just checking the RF attenuation is on full blast, meaning it's on minimum, where, of course, there is... if I just give you a bit of signal for that. As you'll see, the RF attenuation. Turn the volume down, sorry. So there's your attenuator working with a lot of, putting about 15 millivolts into that. So, you know, that's really asking it to attenuate a fair bit there and actually cope with a fair bit. So RF gain, we've got that up there. Let's take it back down to something a little bit less annoying. Wrong way. Try the right direction. Oh, sorry about the camera. That's not very good, is it? Sometimes I stretch over, and now it'll be interesting to see what 50 microvolts is. Probably reading a little bit low, to be honest. Yeah, look, that should be about S9, so we might have to just adjust that up a little bit. But it's actually receiving reasonably well, so that's good. So for a first hookup, that's good. Before we go into the transmit, let's just show you a little bit about what something like this looks like inside, because they have one of those lovely lids that you just pull off, and don't do what I'm doing here. There's just a bit of a cobweb in the way. Now, this one's got its little guard missing over the top, which really is bad. And the reason for that, as I get something plastic, there's some real voltages sitting in here. And if you were to kind of think to yourself, let's adjust things anywhere down in here, or let's just have a play, you're going to get a rude shock. So, point number one is we may even have to make one up for that one, because I don't know that it's got it. But I noticed there's some screws missing on this one, and I'm really sorry to say it's been sitting here for 4 or 5 years, so I just can't remember what came with what, or etc. I remember Miles's. That I remember. I do remember something about this one. This had a new transformer put in it. That's right. There's a reason that transformer looks so bloody new, because it is. Yes, all right, this is coming back to me. And it definitely is 4 or 5 years old, this story. But this chap had a transformer that went faulty, ordered one from the US at X amount of dollars, etc, etc. Anyway, as I'm going through, driver stage, obviously tune circuits, etc, etc, output stage, marker units, receive units, all through here. The uniden 2020 was extremely popular for edge connectors, giving you the absolute pain in the butt. So there are some mods to replace the bottom edge connectors. Me personally, my suggestion to you is, if it's working, leave it alone. It's a long, involved job, and if you haven't done, a bit of that sort of stuff before, might be a good idea to leave it alone. Okay, so let's have a look at the transmit on this fella. Hello, 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 hello. Have a look at the microphone I'm using, by the way. It's an old STC that's been wired up to a, 2020. All these years later, they got the year right for, tomorrow. Right, okay, so this is not the greatest microphone to be running on it, but yeah, it's getting its 100 watts, which is not bad for an old girl. Hello, test. Yeah, the frequency response to this microphone is about to be expected for an old STC. Anyway, all right, what I'm thinking is, we might just hook this up to an antenna. Now, I won't be able to transmit on the band because we're going to use, I've got a 10, 11 metre antenna. Well, I'll try on 490 first. Let's have a little look. Okay, so you're going to have to trust me a little bit here, because I can't transmit on 27 megs to show you anything here. You know what? I was just listening to someone on 27 here, because there was nothing on 28 megs. And the minute I fire up the camera, I thought, oh, come on, really? Anyway, no one there at the moment. But, yes, sorry, this one does transmit on 27, which, from memory, receive only means receive only if you don't remove the diode. I think that's, if I remember, that's what it was. I thought there was a diode or something that they did on these. I've never actually modded one to 27 megs, so I'm not 100% sure. Anyway, but all of a sudden everybody's gone missing. I might just give it a couple of ticks and see if anyone comes up. Alright, so everybody's gone away that I was trying to hear before. Interesting, I've got a couple of things I've sort of got a question on this one and have a look at. But look, it's working fine, which is great, but just a couple of little sort of anomalies that I'd like to just kind of tune. So, without further ado, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so uniden 2020 number 2, I just actually hooked up one of the VFOs. I thought, what the heck, just to give you a bit of a look at, I even used the executive one. This is obviously, very custom executive. I'm not sure why that's on there, but anyway, We'll probably keep the other one. Anyway, yep, that's all good. But VFO seems to be switching in. As you'll see, a little light comes on here as I'm sort of flicking over, etc. We'll show you on the next radio a bit more. This one's got a slight receiver issue that I can see. Transmit's okay. Hello, 1, 2. I went to dummy load, by the way, on 27355. Another one that is is working on on 27355. Been a lot of diodes cut in the history of the unit in 2020s, I think. Anyway, I just thought I'd give it a bit of a quick run up here. But yeah, a little bit of a receiver issue. I just when I plug back into normal VFO, etc., receiver / audio, I'm pumping a fair bit of signal into it when I come up and sort of shove a bit of signal in here. And let's put in about, let's go a bit crazy actually, just to show you how much it's not receiving. 5 millivolts, so it's got to be, now let's have a look. Can we, and we know it's not wildly off frequency because, so I'd say there's a little problem on one of the receiver edge connector boards. Excuse me. Often we pull those boards out, spray them and go, oh, look at that, it's all back again. But I won't bother for now because I want to get on to number 3, which is sitting down here. So let's bring up radio number 3 and have a bit of a look for the 2019 2020 changeover special. Just before I hook up, I thought I'd just give you a bit of a look at the back on what they used to do on the back of these. Fairly standard external VFO, amplifier switching for your PTT. Of course, your old phone patch, which was back on the day. They've got that little connector there is your external VFO. Not a great fan of having bias adjustments on the back. I think people play with things, all knobs to the right too much. Meter adjustment that you can do from the back, which is not so bad. Can actually turn off the RF power amp from a switch here, transverter output, etc. So obviously they run that in coordination. And external receiver antenna and normal antenna. So that's the back of your Commodore Garden Uniden 2020. Righto, so excuse me. So this is very typical of a 2020 where you will end up doing some edge connectors for sure. Actually, in one sense, I'm sort of glad. The goal was only to sort of have one working out of all this lot, and we've got one working, all right. But the second one's an edge connector issue, which is not a difficult one. This one is definitely more of a pain. When they come up with this display, you're definitely in a bit of trouble. Whilst your 100, etc. is working, a lot of things can be a problem though, and look, seriously, sometimes, don't laugh, but we'll spray band selectors, spray mode selectors, spray lots of things, and you'd be amazed after they've been sitting for so long. But have a look at the way it's counting here. Yeah, well, suddenly it's counting better, isn't it? Now look at that, from 3.5, we're actually showing. So we've got some consistency. So we've got 40 and 80 meters, pretty much reading as they should. If you had a decent globe in here, you can see it, but it's a little bit dim. Okay, so when we get to 14 megs, all right, so let's have a little closer look. Do we have a digit out on the end? Very, very possible. Let's have a look. Well, not really. Well, not out, but let's presume that's reading 3 when it should be reading 2. And this should go to, yes, all right, so we're already troubleshooting a fault here. So that's reading 38 when it should be reading 28, 38 point, so yeah, okay. So we've got a problem, and look at that. I've left my analyzer sitting on here. Now let's just have a look. Let's just go in here. Turn this volume down a bit, it's a bit scratchy. Now, this is a bit of fault finding 101 for you here. This is a radio that typically is not working at all because it all looks wrong. The 37 looks wrong, but we've already ascertained that's possibly a digit problem that's happening, so it's just interpreting incorrectly. But let's go to, look at that. Okay. Now, for all intents and purposes, this means we've got a lock chassis that, basically this thing knows it's on 27355 of all things at the moment. We're into a dummy load. Let's take the 4 millivolts of signal we're putting into it. By the way, how good is that 4 millivolts? Let's have a look. Let's put that over So we had a fair bit of attenuation on there. So we're taking the attenuation off. RF gain fully up. Okay. Now, from a non-working radio, when we first hooked this up, let's see if it transmits. Hang on. Let me just actually tune it up. I'll need 2 hands for that. Alright, so we've gone from a uniden 2020 that looks and appears to be a piece of junk, and we've worked out a couple of things. One, the digit here is causing us to think that possibly it's out of lock or something's wrong, but it's not. It's locking perfectly, but the 3 is reading as a 2 is reading as a 3 on the 31 versus 21 versus 28 versus 28.5, etc., 29, sorry, and 27 megs there. So, okay, digit issue. Is that a big deal? Well, we're going to find out. Look, not probably, but by the same token, locking beautifully. When we go to transmit on, of all things, believe it or not, number 3, this is my 3rd one that's actually modded to 27 megs. Unbelievable. Hello. Okay, so I haven't done a big tune-up, but we're getting 50 odd watts coming out of that on 355, blah, blah, blah. So, essentially, this radio, whilst it's got a couple of little quirks, is working, and it's actually something that's real positive, because the faults that you have with these things, actually the fault on the second one is actually far more severe than what we thought was going on here. Initially I thought, don't like that display readout, everything looks wrong about it, you know, but I presumed wrong and I jumped way too fast, jumped the gun. So, you know, be careful not to make my mistakes. But certainly, let's have a look at it. I might just do a little tune-up on 80 meters. Hang on, let's see what we're getting there. Now, always check your bottom band. In this case, I've gone to 80 meters because it is the bottom band. Don't worry about the display of the 27355. We're just looking for a power output. And we've got nearly 100 watts, about a watt off 100 watts. I could probably fine-tune that out. So we know the output stage is working like it should be, so we go, fantastic, what a bloody beauty, because this is not going to take a lot. It's going to take a little bit of cleaning up though. A couple of things to note. The heater switch, the actual switch there is just broken off. Now, I'm hoping that I'll be able to get it looks like it's just the paddle that's broken off, so we'll be able to obviously take something like that off one of our wrecked chassis. What else did I notice? Oh, well, we didn't. I want to replace some globes. We want to fix the display so that it works, you know, perfectly, so that we don't get this happening, this 31 versus 21, 38 versus 28, and 39 versus 29, blah, 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 and 27, of course. So, okay, so let's go back to our original one. So this is going to give a lot away, because I'm about to show you the tricks of restoring and playing with radios. So, the one with the worst case, the one that has got no screws in it, the one I've owned the longest, the one that we've, I would say, been into, because since I started this video I had a look and this plate was off as well. So at some stage, 4 or 5 years ago, we started having a play with this one. But we must have done something right, because it actually bloody works. Okay, so the good news. Let's have a look. This one, oh, there's your 101 watts. So that's a nice thing to see. Receiver, perfect on this thing. So this is the base of which we will build a uniden 2020. So the end of this video is to really just give you some insight as to how we build systems. Like the speaker, very nice. The VFO, not as clean as I'd like it to be, not bad, but we'll take that one. And it's cleaner. And we'll basically put a system together that becomes the fully working uniden 2020, etc., etc. The one thing I would say, not for the faint-hearted. These can be repairs, you know, that can really involve some time. So please remember that. All right. Well, I thought we'd just finish. On listening to the receiver of this. Just heard a New Zealand station coming through on 27355 of all things. Amazing. But anyway, this has been fun. Just trying to see if anyone wants to come up with a decent signal at the moment, but maybe not. We'll do a final, when we get this all sort of finished off and working beautifully on air, we'll do a bit of a 80 metre and 40 metre test on this one. Unfortunately, I've only got a 10 metre antenna sitting in this room at the moment, so you may be wondering about my obsession with 27 megs. Not quite. It's just that it's where the signals are at the moment to hear. There you go. There's that New Zealand station. All right. 73s. Happy New Year. Happy 2020. 73s.